everybody. Welcome to the brand new IAmRight episode. I am Rocker Mike. We have Rob Rossi right there next to me. The
And this is episode 5?
I think it is.
Trouble in Paradise.
Yeah. we got Knowledge in the center, bottom right, and Eric Moore, bottom right there too. Okay. We have two special guests today.
Do you say Chris?
I'm going to talk about her right now. We have two special guests today. It's a very very serious episode today, believe it or not. I'm sure we'll have some fun with it. But we have Shane Jenkins, bottom left. Shane, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It is, definitely. I'm glad you're on. Shane Jenkins is I'm just going to say a victim of January 6th, okay? He served 4 years in the Washington, D.C. jail. He witnessed Rosemary Boylan basically get – what was that?
Roseanne Boylan, yes, sir.
Roseanne Boylan, excuse me, get murdered basically in the area of the tunnel area of the Capitol building on January 6th. He has been involved since his pardon with prison reform. We're going to talk about that. And top right, we have Chris. How you doing, Chris?
I am doing fine. How are you doing, Mike?
Okay, great. You might recognize Chris from some of the Son of Sam episodes I do. And also, Chris is going to be talking about prison reform as well. She has become aware about some bills that are going through the New York State legislature that we're going to talk about a little bit.
Hey, but Mike, before you start, how about Bryce? You want to do a little shout out to Bryce?
Absolutely. I want to pay the bills for a second and mention Bryce from Esoteric Atlanta. She has an online school called Esoteric Academy. If you guys are interested in Eastern philosophies, yoga, Eastern spirituality, she is the person to see. We will be putting a link up on the bottom of the show notes for her school, and she teaches that Eastern philosophy and spirituality will help you get through your life every day, and tensions and problems and things like that. Very cool stuff. She's a great person. She's part of Esoteric Atlanta, the podcast that I've been doing a lot of shows with recently, including Chris. And when you go onto the link, if you put in Rocker Mike 69, you will be getting a discount for her classes and whatever she offers there on Esoteric Atlanta. It's a good deal, right, Rob?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm. Cool stuff. All right, so we got a big show here today. We're going to be talking about prison reform, but I mean, we got so much going on with Shane's story, and of course, Chris is going to go into these bills. Shane, I got to bring you in first, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Basically, I'm going to let you speak here because no one can tell this better than you. What happened on January 6th to you?
Man, so, obviously, let me give you a little backstory. I voted, so I had been in and out of prison most of my life. I had some issues as a youngster, found out I was adopted when I was 13. Was in juvenile prison by the age of 16 till I was 19, got out, was out a year. My mom married an abusive man, my stepdad. He went to jail twice for beating my mom. I came home one night and he threatened to kill me. I ended up shooting him 11 times later that night in self-defense after he had already shot at me with the shotgun. So at 13, had an identity crisis, found out I was adopted, really jerked the rug out from underneath me. Then at the age of 20, killed my stepdad by my own hand, but led me down this dark path into a life of getting involved in the criminal justice system, in and out of prison most of my life until 2016, gave my life to Christ. And then that's when my politics came forth based upon my biblical belief. I started paying attention to the persecution of President Trump and caring about the unborn. And so got out of prison in 2018, voted for the first time ever in 2020, watched the 2020 election be stolen, what I believe. Then saw that fateful tweet that President Trump sent out. It said, come to DC, join the Stop the Steal rally. And he said, "Will be wild." And it was in all caps. And I was like, oh, God, I wish he wouldn't have said "will be wild." And so I decided to go to the Capitol to attend the rally. I went alone. I tried to get people to go with me. Nobody seemed to want to go. They were smarter than I was, right? And so I went to the rally. I was at the Ellipse. Stayed all the way till the end of the speeches. Made my way. I had met some ladies at the DFW airport. I had a layover. I flew from Houston to Dallas, had a layover in Dallas, met a family there. They asked me to be their escort because the father had to stay home and take care of the farm. So I went with them. Well, after we watched all the speeches, they wanted to go to their hotel room and freshen up. So I went to Starbucks and got protein packs and coffee for everybody. Cause if you're going to storm the Capitol, you got to be full on caffeine and protein, right? so shout out to Starbucks. Not really, but so they came down and we were talking. This was probably I want to say 2:30 or so. One of them pulled out their phone and they said, "Oh my God, they've stormed the Capitol."
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, Shane?
Yeah.
With this, hold your thought. You just gave a timeline. You said 2:30. Okay. Now I was watching Donald Trump's speech that day. He was done with his speech by that point, right?
Right. No, and I stayed till the very end because Donald Trump came out late, and I feel like they knew something was going on at the Capitol, but he came out like an hour late, and he gave a long. I mean, he went into every state into details about how every state was what they were doing to manipulate the numbers and this, that, the other in every state, and so it was a long speech. We stayed all the way till the end.
Now, during that speech, he did say, "March to the Capitol peacefully."
Yeah, he said, "I will be going with you to the Capitol. We're going to march peacefully and patriotically
to
make our voices heard
whatsoever."
Right, and so there's a whole bunch of different layers to this. What I believe, my friends call it a lobster trap entrapment. And so prior to coming to DC, I met some people, and they were like, "Well, I know some people that are going. Join this Zoom call before you go to find out where people are meeting and the Proud Boys, this, that, and the other." So I got in there, and they were like, "Well, look." So from the time of the election, November 3rd, till prior to January 6th, they had about 3 rallies prior to January 6th after the election. Well, at one of those rallies, multiple people had gotten stabbed, people had been robbed, people had been jumped. So there had been, and DC is a dangerous city. So they were like, be prepared, to protect yourself. And I was like, I'm not going into the ghetto, into the hood, without some way to protect myself. So people are like, well, why, if you were going to peacefully protest, why did you take tomahawks with you? And so I had watched The Patriot and Braveheart too many times, and I was like, I'm just going to I've got these special operations group SOG tomahawks laying around. I'm going to put them in my backpack. If I need them, I'll use them. If I don't, I'm not going to, so.
All right, just for the people that don't know, Shane, what's a tomahawk?
A tomahawk is I could run and get it, but it's like a survival hatchet. You want me to run and get them? I've got the actual ones.
If you got one handy, I'd like.
Yeah, I'll go. Give me just 1 second. I got.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Show and tell time.
The only tomahawk I know is a steak.
And Rob ain't throwing that at nobody.
You'll be eating that. I love a tomahawk steak.
Yeah, it's like a tomahawk steak. It just got made.
You have your tomahawk.
Yes, I do. So this is
a tomahawk.
Okay.
So this is like a survival
hat. That's like in The Patriot. I remember that. Yeah.
So I've got 2 of them. I intend to present President Trump with one of these. If you look at the website at therealj6.com, I have 2 tomahawks on the website like this with the Capitol building behind it. But anyways,
right.
But so I brought those as a defense. You have a right to defend yourself in America or protect the innocent. And so after we found out the Capitol had gotten stormed, allegedly, I was like, y'all please be careful. I'm going to see what's happening because I didn't know. I had been following QAnon and all this crazy stuff, right? All the conspiracy stuff and all that. And I was like, man, something is going to happen. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I ran down to the Capitol. And when I got down there, I came around the west side of the Capitol building, and they had those temporary grandstands set up where it's like a stadium around the inauguration stage where the president puts his hand on the Bible on January 20th. Typically, which Trump didn't do that this year, but every other year except for one, they've done that. And so when I came around, it would look like somebody had kicked a fire ant bed, and there was people climbing all over those grandstands. And I was like, holy crap, what is going on, right? And so this was I was late to the show. And prior to that, while I was in the I spent 32 months in the DC jail, 14 months in federal prison. But while I was in the DC jail, we were all in there together dissecting video and looking at what, like, minute by minute, second by second, what was happening to the crowd and this, that, the other. And at some point, the crowd got bunched up at the foot of the Capitol on the west side, and the officer, like Captain, I forget who it was, Police Chief Sund or somebody, came out, and they started authorizing the use of those 30 millimeter breakover munitions, flashbangs, tear gas.
Right.
They were shooting pepper balls. They were shooting rubber bullets at people head high, which none of that stuff is legal. And in all these, the crowd, imagine like the Capitol building sitting in front of you, and then the crowd is just bunched up against it. They're shooting munitions over the crowd into the back of the crowd,
right,
which is pushing the front forward, which is against the police line. And now the police line in the front is beating the hell out of people. And you and I see a woman get hit, or you see a woman get pushed down the stairs or whatever. And like 99% of the men, I did about the 32 months I did in the DC jail, there was probably 100 men in there. Out of those 100 men, in my personal opinion, what I witnessed on video, all of them doing, we all saw what each other did. Out of those 100 men, maybe 2 of them responded above and beyond what was reasonable. Everybody else witnessed something happen to somebody and responded, or something happened to them and they responded. Now, was it right to respond? That's up for the courts to decide. But anyway, so I make my way up to the I finally climb up the side of the Capitol building and I realized, like, when I grabbed this rail, I heard this small voice in my head say, "Shane, this is dangerous." And I had to stop for a second, and I was like, why am I here? And I was like, this is the first election I ever voted in. And I just saw, all I could think about was my kids and my future grandchildren and great grandchildren and all. And I was like, we're here because I know without a doubt. And now it's come to be proved. But I had, what you saw the videos of the Fulton County stuff where they're pulling the ballots underneath the table.
Mm-hmm.
You saw where there was 200,000, whatever it was, 100,000 votes straight for Joe Biden at 3:00 in the morning, which is statistically impossible. You saw counties that had more voters than were registered voters, which is impossible. So there's problems with the election. And then you had these 5 swing states where the margin of victory was between like 7 and 12,000 votes, which was a very small number when you're counting 80, 160 million, 150 million votes, right? That's a very small margin. So I had a lot of questions about it. So we went to protest and have our voice heard. Well, when I climbed over that rail, after I heard that voice, it looked like a freaking war zone. There was people crying. There was people laying on the ground bloodied. There was people unconscious. It was crazy. And so I climbed over the wall and I made my way up to the window to the left of the lower West Terrace tunnel. Did you have a question?
Can I interrupt you for 1 second here?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
I just have a question. So when the Capitol Police started launching, smoke grenades and rubber bullets, now you said the rubber bullets was shot at them basically point blank, chest high, kind of. That's not the way to do rubber bullets, right? You're supposed to
center mass
down, right?
Yeah, center mass, legs, stuff like that.
Do you think that act of shooting the smoke grenades and the rubber bullets actually provoked the riot?
I believe it was used as an agitation, not as a deterrent, but as an agitation, because it was not. This is the thing, and when I was there, I can testify to this. But prior to this, all the video that I watched, the thousands, hundreds of hours that we watched, not once do you ever hear the police say, "You're trespassing. This is illegal for you to."
That was my next question.
Yeah, you need to leave. They never said
this is an unlawful assembly.
They never said, not one time did they ever say that, which would have deterred because a lot of people, like 99% of the people, are standing around watching. And so they would.
And prior to that, they were actually letting people in.
Well, yeah, no. On one side of the building, they're letting people in. Yeah. They're just stay between the velvet ropes. If you break something, it's on you. So there was a lack of leadership, and I believe there was an intention because any other day ever prior to this, Capitol grounds are public grounds.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of people don't realize this too. Like, how did everybody end up at the Capitol? They think it was because President Trump said to go down there. Well, they had the speakers at the Ellipse. There was supposed to be a second slate of speakers at the Capitol building. People don't remember this, which was going to be headed by Mike Pompeo amongst lesser speakers as well. And so people don't realize that that's why people were going to the Capitol. And so they canceled all that. You know, they had the pipe bombs and all this other stuff that they still have yet to show anything
Right,
about.
the pipe bombs at the DNC. And
yeah. And so, you know, so we get up there, the cops are attacking the crowd. And while I'm up, and this is where I made a mistake. You know, I blame it on my underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, which has a hard time identifying risk or bad decisions, gambling, whatever it is. But I'm watching the crowd get the hell beat out of them. So there's a tunnel full of, so prior to me getting there, you know, the tunnel that the president walks out of, for the speech, it's filled with police all the way out to the front of the tunnel.
Now, were these DC police or were they Capitol Police?
There was probably 95% of them were DC Metro Police, which an argument against this is they were never called.
Yeah,
they were never authorized to be there.
Yeah, because it's federal.
Yeah, so yeah, and so
were they just there? Like they shouldn't have been.
They showed up. They showed up in riot gear with riot shields and billy clubs, ready to go. Because I believe this was a coordinated effort between
before the riot. Before the riot, they were already,
yeah.
Oh, I see.
No, for sure. They showed up in football gear, ready to play full contact, when everybody else was like, "What is going on?" And they were the ones really getting rough. So I didn't witness any Capitol Police being out of pocket. All the ones that I saw being out of pocket were DC cops, and I believe that was manufactured between Muriel Bowser and Nancy Pelosi. I can't prove that, but I believe that's what was going on. So I'm watching these people get the hell beat out of them. That's whenever I had the brilliant idea, like, I'm standing by this window. I can see in the window. There's a room in there. Nobody's in there. Why don't we, if we're trying to go in here and have a sit in, like we're going to make them drag all of us out of here in handcuffs. I was like, why don't I just break this window out? We'll go in through the window. So I pull out my tomahawk. I hit the window about 6 or 7 times. The crowd starts freaking out. No, we're not Antifa. We don't do that. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I stopped hitting the window. I put the tomahawk up, and that was it. And so I'm like, well, you know what? I'm watching these people get the hell beat out of them. I'm going to go into the tunnel and see what the hell is going on, why these people are getting the hell, because I didn't see anybody attacking the cop. It wasn't like, you know, people are just going in there, like, not at first, but I'm seeing people get the hell beat out of them. So I'm like, I'm going to go up here myself and see what's going on. And I go up there, and before I get to the front of the police line, I get pepper sprayed in the face 4 times, taking no action against police officers. I turn around, put my back to the police, and when I do make my way backwards up to the police line, I get struck from behind with an extendable baton, or an ass, by Commander Bagshaw, the MPD, who also at that time is striking Victoria White. If you look up Victoria White on Twitter, there's a video of her being struck about 32 to 38 times in the head with the same extendable baton that struck me. It hit me through a balaclava, a hoodie, and a beanie, and left a gash and a dent in my head. I still have a dent in my head from it. And that's how hard he hit me. You know what I mean? And so he's beating Victoria White. I can hear that woman screaming, and they pop some kind of tear gas in the tunnel. I crawl my way out of the tunnel because I can't breathe or see. I finally get back to where I was at, get my eyes cleared up. And then that's when the whole thing with Roseanne Boylan unfolded. Now, I didn't actively see, like, it's in the psychology. You can look up psychology of like a mob or a crowd. It's very interesting concept. But you can see in the video, you can see Roseanne Boylan turning blue, being drugged through the crowd, people doing CPR to her, people taking her back up to the front of the police line. You can hear people saying, she's dying, she's dying. I don't actively.
Was she more likely trampled at that point?
So would be my assumption. So before I got there, you'd had to watch the video, but I did see the video after the fact. Before I was there, the crowd had pushed all the way into the tunnel. There's 2 doors in there. They had broken the doors down. That's when all the cops showed up to the tunnel and basically bulldozed everybody out of the tunnel. Well, if the cops are pushing this way and everybody's lined up like ground at the floor at a concert, imagine that if you're on the floor at the concert and they just started pushing, everybody's going to start falling because you can't move your feet and there's people behind you and all that. So that's what happened to her, is she got rolled up in that and then suffocated underneath that ground, right? And so they eventually spit her out the front of the tunnel. Somebody drags her out, sees her unconscious. They pull her into the crowd, Colton Maccabee. Sarah Maccabee's the CEO of my foundation. Her husband's doing CPR on her, giving her mouth to mouth. They eventually drag her back up to the front of the police line and like lay her there and say, "Help her!" Like she's dying. She's clearly turning blue from lack of oxygen. And at this point, this big giant DC cop pushes the other cops out of the way, like Goliath or something, steps out there and puts his foot on this woman like like it's a trash can laid on its side, and just like pushes her like to roll her back out into the crowd. And the crowd absolutely lost it because all they were saying, take her to safety, get her out of here. And they're sitting there and he tries to roll her back out in the crowd, like, excuse me, shit just came flying from everywhere. And that's whenever you see this walking stick come flying in. It's like as big around as a silver dollar, and it lands on this wall right here. And Roseanne's laying like right in front of the tunnel, and this officer, Lila Morris, from the DC Metro Police, picks that stick up.
Female officer.
Female officer picks that stick up, and I don't know what was going through her mind. She picks that stick up and looks at the woman unconscious, turning blue on the ground, not moving, and just starts going whack. Whack! She hits her 3 times. The third time, she breaks the stick over this girl's head.
Oh my God.
And that girl later dies. Now, I don't know if that was the fatal blow. She was already suffocating from lack of oxygen. She later died. And that we witnessed in the crowd, like, went ballistic at that point. And it was kind of like, that was whenever I started, like, when they started trying to push her back out in the crowd, I was like, you mother, like, and just started throwing stuff at the cops. And that's what they got me for. Assault. I threw all those things at the cops when all that happened. I left not long after that, made it back home to Houston, and was arrested on March 5th, one day less than 2 months.
Hold that thought for a second.
Well, but the media didn't cover any of that.
Not at all.
Not at all. That was like
just to bring that up. Okay.
Because the only person I thought that died was Ashley Babbitt.
No. They didn't cover Roseanne Boylan at all.
I think that's alarming because the media is constantly covering excessive force with police officers, and they can't be bothered to cover it at the Capitol riots.
That's a good point.
You know what? The only time they cover is when idiot protesters go around talking about we don't want to clean, blah blah blah, and Antifa and all these guys. You know what? We need to go back to good law enforcement, where they just crack you over the head and ask questions later, because these people are out of control.
Well, if you look at every other case, like I'm thinking of that case where I believe it was in Georgia. The 2 officers pulled over a guy. He was drunk at a drive-through.
And Wendy's,
and he fought the officers, and they got fired for using excessive force. Like, they tased him. He grabbed the taser. I think he grabbed another officer's gun.
Right.
And they fired those officers for excessive force. Meanwhile, here at the Capitol, it's clearly excessive force.
Yeah.
And it's not an issue.
Well, it's justified under storming the Capitol, but there's still no reason to use it. I mean, you can use nonviolent communication to de-escalate, and obviously police officers need to be trained a little bit better.
Well, the thing is Capitol Police are I've talked to cops that they're notoriously like undertrained. Okay, this was the DC cops you're talking about, Shane, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Okay. DC Metro Police.
So we're talking about guys that are trained, and
No, the thing is too is not only. Like, there has been no investigation, and there was 4 deaths at the Capitol: Benjamin Phillips, Kevin Greason, Ashley Babbitt, and Roseanne Boylan. All died on Capitol grounds, whether it was from a heart attack, getting hit in the head with a flashbang, rubber bullets. Ashley Babbitt got shot. Roseanne Boylan suffocated, trampled, also assaulted while she was unconscious. But there's been no accountability. Not only that, they took the officer, Lila Morris, who struck her in the head. They set her on the 50-yard line of the Super Bowl that happened a couple of weeks later. They gave her the equivalent of, it may have been the Congressional Medal of Honor or the equivalent of that for her action, for her bravery.
Michael Bird. They did the same with Michael Bird.
Right.
Yeah, they gave this woman the Medal of Honor for killing a person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the Medal of Honor. That's only for the military. I forget what the civilian equivalent is.
Yeah, it's something
Medal
for
of Freedom.
civilians. It's not the Medal of Honor, but it's
Medal
like,
of,
Right.
Medal of Freedom, I think it's
Medal of
called.
Freedom, yeah. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing- the problem is it doesn't fit a particular narrative. If it's not, if it's not a white police officer killing a black man, then it doesn't fit the narrative, and they're not going to broadcast that on the media. And it's unfortunate. The proper amount of deaths at the hands of police is 0, whether you're white, black, brown, purple, pink, whatever, gay, straight, Jewish, whatever. It doesn't matter. It should be 0. If policing is done right, there should be 0 deaths at the hands of the police. Not do I believe there should be authorized lethal force because a building is being damaged? I don't agree with that. I don't.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, the theme of this whole thing is that you guys were storming the Capitol as some kind of takeover of the government. That's total bullshit.
That's
All right.
false.
Well, the FBI said there was no. Like everybody tries to say there was an insurrection. The only insurrection that actually happened was in Seattle in 2020, but
That
nobody
was an
wants to talk about it.
insurrection.
actually, the last insurrection that actually happened was when the machete shot up the fucking Congress.
Well, LA is the LA riots is by definition of law an insurrection.
Yeah.
The LA riots back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
No. These ones right here
The
that
ones-
happened
Yeah, they are. That's what you
They-
said international.
as defined by law. They are an insurrection.
Yeah.
But they won't. The media won't call it that.
No,
No, they would call it a peaceful march.
it's a peaceful
It's a
protest.
protest.
Mostly peaceful as it's burning to the ground in the background.
Well, the media actually witnessed. Okay, so one of the things for an insurrection is it has to be an organized group with a similar goal, right? So what the media witnessed was someone handing out high-end armor and shields and gas masks
This is
to
an LA.
individuals, not like 5 or 6, like
No, that's a lot.
No. dozens. This was obviously organized. So go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, interesting that you should say that. In some of the video we discovered while in the DC jail, there's these particular double doors and there's a camera trained on them, and we have the footage from that camera. This double doors pops open. These 2 DC police or Metro police walk out the door, and they throw this giant, like football style duffel bag. They walk out the doors, they look around, and they throw this bag out. And as it hits the ground, zip ties bounce out of it, and you can see there's batons and helmets in there and all kinds of stuff. They turn around and walk right back into the building. So what were their intentions by throwing these things? Because they knew the crowd was going to find them. They're
Right.
probably going to get passed out. They're going to they're going to be called stolen items, or they're
Yeah.
going to be items that are going to be used to armor people against the police. And it just blows my mind. And there was another bag that a guy, Pete Schwartz, who's also a January 6th guy, that he found. And they were passing out pepper spray, and it was kind of like an entrapment. Like, here's a bunch of stuff. Pass it out. The cops are beating the hell out of you. Here's some pepper spray and some billy clubs. What are you going to do with those? I wonder. It's
Wow.
just like
That's crazy, man. You know
Yeah.
what? You know they're saying that they're making this look at such a bigger deal, and then you got that 75-year-old woman with the American flag in there.
She was waving the
Yeah,
flag.
did she even get arrested? Give me a fucking break. This whole thing, and then they had the documentary with all the cops and shit. Oh, we were fighting for our life. These guys were assholes.
Well, first of all, going on Capitol grounds is misdemeanor trespassing.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
How about the Nancy Pelosi's daughter documentary when Nancy says, "Oh, this is on me. I'm responsible for the security and all that." She says all that.
Separation of powers. That is a congressional building. The president can't control the sergeant of the guard there. That is under the control of Congress.
And the Speaker of the House is in charge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and they turned away the National Guard, her and Muriel Bowser, and what
Mhm.
they did was they manufactured conditions. I'm sure they told the police how to behave. They had, out of all the Capitol Police, that they have 2,000 Capitol Police on staff. Out of all those 2,000 officers, 10%, 200 were on duty. You had the DC Metro Police acting rogue, and so they created conditions to stage a riot to cover up a stolen election. And now that we come back, we come full full circle now, and it's saying China and Iran, CCP were interfering in the election. Now, if you look at the Hunter Biden cover up with the laptop and all that, they covered up this stolen election with this fake riot, and then
I just want to tell you guys, Shane, I met you at the America First warehouse, in the studio audience for Live from Studio 6B. Okay, fantastic show. Shout out to those guys. I was there last night for another episode. I got interviewed again, which was cool. Yeah, but they're great, those guys. But they brought up the fact that China, that now it's been determined that China was printing up fake IDs for people to be able to vote in the 2020 election. And Christopher Wray, who was the former head of the FBI, is now being brought up on criminal charges.
Wow.
What do you think of that? Huge, right?
I think that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's got. I mean, for you, I mean, he was the guy in charge of the FBI while you were being locked up.
Well, that's the one that Clay Higgins, congressman from Louisiana, had him on. He was questioning him in a hearing, and he said, "Can you tell me why there were federal officers dressed as Trump supporters inside the Capitol before the Capitol was breached?"
Oh, there was none. There was none. Oh,
he says, "I can't comment." I said, "I can't comment on an ongoing investigation." He said, "What?" And so it was clearly entrapment and a setup.
Another thing I saw today, I'm going to bring this up in passing. You might be familiar with this guy, Torres from the Proud Boys.
Torrio or Enrique Tarrio?
Torrio. He was being interviewed today on Real America's Voice. I was watching it, and he basically he said, because he got 18 years. Okay,
he got 22
wasn't even
years.
there.
22 years is what he got.
22 or 18?
No, 22. Yeah, 22 years.
Okay, I'll defer to you. 22 years, and he wasn't even at the site. Okay, and obviously he got pardoned after the fact, and we'll talk about the pardons in a minute. But 22 years now. The supposedly the Justice Department under Biden had said to him, if you talk bad about Trump, it'll be a different story.
That's right.
And he said, fuck you. And he got 22 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a true story, because there's a particular guy, I think he's from New Jersey, don't really care for him. He was the one that had the encounter with Fanone on the Lower West Terrace, and he went into court, and his lawyer had him write an attorney. His attorney had him write a letter to the court saying that he felt Trump misled him. He said that the people in the DC jail, it was like they were living in a cult, because we would pray every night and we would sing the anthem every night together. And so he betrayed us. And then he said that Trump lied to him, misled him. He said that the election was not stolen, that Trump told him to do what he did, and they let that guy out on bond. And that was a signal to all of us that as much suffering as we've been going through for those 2 years, we have been denied visits with our family for 2 years. We have been denied religious services for 2 years. We have been denied haircuts for a year. We have been denied fingernail clippers for a year. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, away from my family, can't see my kids. And now they're using this as, so, hey, if you throw Trump under the bus or say this was an insurrection, we'll let you out on bond. And they let that man out on bond, but everybody held strong and didn't say, they didn't betray Trump or betray the MAGA movement or betray their brothers. Some people broke weak and testified against other people and stuff like that, but there's a majority of us that were solid and held it down and said, and I told them, I said, they offered me 92 to 115 months. And I said, you know what? I said, I would love to consider your plea offer, but I don't negotiate with terrorists. And my lawyer was like, this is what my lawyer was like. And I went to trial. I went all the way to trial. I got 7 years at trial, but I told him, I said, I wouldn't give a damn if you told me I could get out tomorrow and I knew I was going to get 10,000 years if I go to trial. I said, I don't give a damn. This is historic. I'm representing my family. I'm representing this movement. I'm representing this country. And I said, I'm not going to bend my knee to tyranny, and I'm not going to kiss their ass. I don't give a damn what happens. I'm going all the way to the end, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did.
Total kudos to you, man. I mean, you got balls. Okay. And I want to talk about your time in prison. All right. You got arrested after this. It was a few days later, I think, or not too long after.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
what happened at that point, and tell us your experience. And I want to get into the prison reform stuff because I know
Right.
that's your baby right now, and
Yeah.
I want to bring Chris into that too.
Yeah, for sure. So I got arrested March 5th, a little like 1 day less than 2 months after the January 6th staged insurrection. I was arrested. They came to my house with Houston SWAT and the FBI. They had labeled me a tier 1 anti-government extremist, which is tier 1 like Timothy McVeigh, Ted Kaczynski, Osama bin Laden. They sent the head of the Houston area joint terrorism task force to my house to raid my house. They pulled an armored personnel vehicle in my front yard, popped the top with a megaphone and said, "Shane Jenkins, this is Houston SWAT and the FBI. You need to come out." I came out. There was multiple lasers off of long rifles pointed at my chest. They were hiding behind a ballistic shield like I was going to detonate myself or something. They took me into custody. They put me in a cell in FDC, which is Federal Detention Center, Houston. They put me in a cell for 11 days and locked the door. They brought me my meals through the tray slot, through the bean slot. They didn't let me take a shower. They didn't let me make a phone call. They didn't let me do anything. So imagine getting kidnapped off the streets and thrown in a cell for 11 days. You can't call your lawyer. And this is like nationwide news. They throw you in a cell, no shower, no nothing. And they said, you've got to pass 2 COVID tests before we let you out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to take a shower. And then they finally let me make a phone call after about 18 days. I got to make 1 phone call when they put me in Gen Pop. Then that night they put me back in solitary confinement to leave. And I had to spend another 11 days in solitary confinement before I left. Then they loaded me on the bus, took me to the airfield. I got on Con Air. They flew me from there to Oklahoma City. I spent about 2 weeks in Oklahoma at various different transfer facilities. And they flew me on Con Air to West Virginia. I ended up in Northern Neck Regional Jail for about 9 days in a maximum security pod where everybody's carrying knives and stabbing each other. I watched the guards beat the crap out of like 2 different people in Northern Neck Regional Jail. That's a nice place to go. And then I eventually made it to DC around April 17th. I did another 17 days in solitary confinement for quarantine purposes. I watched, we were in C2B was where all the men were at that time from January 6th. And we were in the C2A, I think, which is next door. And I'll never forget being in that cell every night, hearing those guys next door singing the national anthem at 9:00.
Well,
and I was like, those are our people.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that during that whole time when Biden was president and everything, Real America's Voice actually, promoted that every night. Okay, that you guys were doing the national anthem and everything like that. And I would be watching the live from Studio 6B shows, 21, 22, 23, and they were talking, these guys are doing the national anthem right now. And then they came out with the song, right?
Yeah.
It was are you on that?
Yeah, I'm one of the. So there's 20 of us that are actually. I'm technically. It's funny story. I'm technically a platinum recording artist.
That was a number one song. No shit.
We beat Taylor Swift out for number 1, and so it's funny. A lady for the June 14th, she reached out to me on Facebook and was like, "Shane, would you mind? I'm having a boat parade in Fort Myers, Florida. Would you mind coming down and singing at our boat parade?" And I was like, I don't sing. I mean, I am, because on my bio on Facebook it says, my first line says platinum recording artist. Is being
for people that don't know, they had released the January 6th singing the national anthem as a single, and over it you had President Trump doing the Pledge of Allegiance,
right?
And it actually went to number 1. I mean,
it's called amazing. It's called Donald Trump and the J6 Prison Choir. The name of the song is called Justice for All. You can look it up on YouTube.
Yep.
There's a really good video that goes along with it. The producer of the song, LJ Fino, shout out to him. He made the video for YouTube. But it was a traumatic thing going through that. I mean, while we were in there, like, that song used to beat the hell out of us, because it was like 9:00 every night, after singing it for like 1,000 days straight. Like, it's just like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. But man, there was times that, like, I'm standing there with tears rolling down my face. I'll never forget Louis Gohmert and Marjorie Taylor Greene being in the pod with us. They made it in there to talk to us. Finally, it was like somebody had finally knew we were in there, came to save the day. And they get in there at 8:30, and then at like 9:00, they were singing the anthem. Yeah, we're singing the anthem. The guy goes up on the rail with our little homemade flag, and he's like, 20 seconds. We used to always do that, like 20 seconds. And he would get up there and then we would count down 3, 2. The guards were like looking around, MTG and them were like looking around. And then the 3, 2, 1, we start singing. That everybody puts their hand over their heart, faces the flag, and starts singing. And I'll never forget, just tears rolling down our face. So there was a lot of, man, they tortured the hell out of us in there.
Yeah,
But
I want you to kind of go into detail with that because I know you weren't allowed to have haircuts.
You want to hear something funny, Mike?
Yeah.
Remember when we went to school, we used to have to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Do that shit no more, these fucking idiots.
No, they don't do
we
it.
should do it. We used to do it with the first thing you did in class. You did the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody looked at the flag. Like, I think that's when we started losing our way. Because you know what's great? When everybody say, "Oh, where you from? Where you from?" And when I tell people I'm an American, they get a little upset.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with. There was a judge that said a J6er's rights were violated because of the prison conditions, and the DOJ admitted, said yes, the conditions are bad, but you should still let us charge him. And the judge flipped. The judge flipped.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, no, there was black mold there was a lot of black mold in there. So whenever, thank God for our families and for Mickey Whithoff protesting outside the jail, because they started to really bring a lot of attention to us. Us singing the anthem really like garnered a lot of support from the general public. Meanwhile, all of our families are joining Telegram chats and kind of like if something would happen in the jail, because you never knew, like the guards would come in. I might be having a bad day and the guard will like go in my cell and tear my stuff up, and I like snap on the guard, and then they drag me off. They pepper spray me, drag me off to the solitary confinement. That never happened to me because I knew the kind of games they played, but it happened. Like, and most of the time it happened on like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July, Thanksgiving. They would always be holidays. Some of these guards would have to be at work and they would be pissed off because they were there on a holiday. They would call the goon squad in there and they would drag somebody off to the shoe, and it happened regularly. The food was horrible, which is pretty standard across the board in prisons and jails. But just the denial of the basic rights. I've never seen them deny anybody visits. They said that we couldn't have visits because we refused to get vaccinated, because we were a risk to the other inmates into the other jail, like the rest of the jail and our families. They denied us haircuts because they didn't want us to go to the barbershop because we wouldn't get vaccinated. So we were a risk to the other people down there. We couldn't use the fingernails because that's where the fingernail clippers were at. We're in the barbershop. They wouldn't let the chaplains come in because we refused to get vaccinated. So under the guise of medical tyranny, they used to keep us from participating in all these things.
So everybody understands, if you don't have an opportunity to clip your fingernails, the only choice you have is to chew them off.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, and that's what you did, right?
That's right. Yeah, no, that's right.
I mean, that's absolutely disgusting. Okay.
Yeah.
And you had to do that for at least what, a year or two?
A year. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, Louis Gohmert came, and then Troy Nels, who's actually a congressman down here from where I'm at in Houston, Texas. He's from Fort Bend County. He used to be a county sheriff there for 8 years. He came into the jail. He brought the director of the jail with him in there, and we told him, like, hey, we're not getting visits, we're not getting to use the barbershop, we're not getting this, that, the other. And Troy Nels looked at the director and he said, so how are you justifying not giving these guys this stuff? And they had brought this new director in because he was somewhat legit, and he corrected that. So the very next weekend we started getting visits. We were able to go to the barbershop. All these different things changed, but it was after 2 years of already being like put through this torture.
Let me
Mike, you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
It's funny that everybody that they fire after they didn't take the vaccine, they all had to get hired and get paid all that time they lost.
Yeah.
You notice how that happened? And nobody talks about that. How many guys got fired?
The back pay, yeah.
And the other thing, once this shit happened in New York City, I was down in Florida with Eric, and it was like nothing was happening. It was fucking great. Nobody was dropping.
Can I ask you a question really quickly, Shane?
Yeah, Chris, please jump in.
That kind of treatment, how rehabilitative do you think it is? I mean, whenever a person is treated like that, whenever they're incarcerated, how do you think that affects them whenever they get out?
Well, I would say, especially what we endured, the extended periods of solitary confinement. Like I can explain it to you in a kind of a comparison. If you put a dog in a kennel for months at a time, and you feed it in that kennel, and you don't let it out of that kennel, and you just leave it in there. You let that dog out, that dog is going to go
Buck wild.
crazy, like
Crazy.
batshit crazy. Yeah. And so that is just a minor impact. And so being like, it's absolutely, it is harmful to the community that people are being released into to be put in extended periods of solitary confinement. There has got to be. That's my problem with justice reform. We are America is badass. We lead the world in so many things, but if you look at where we're at with recidivism and how we treat our people, whether it's homeless, veterans, whatever it is, or people in prison, we're down there on the list, and we owe it to not only the people in prison to do better, but for society. Because people don't think about, oh, they're in prison, to hell with them. Well, one day a majority, probably like 80% of those people are getting out of prison, and they're gonna move in next door to you, Eric. You to knowledge their kids are going to go to school with our kids, and those relationships they have with these people, broken people from prison, is going to overflow into their kids, and that's going to impact our children at school. So it behooves us as a society to invest in these people, see the humanity in them, do right by them, get these people who are concerned about their mental health and their well-being and their spirituality in here to work with those people, bring the family back into the prisons to repair these broken relationships that the mom or the children's mother have with the father, bring the kids to spend time with dad so they can get reintegrated. So it's not just a culture shock when they jump back out into society. We've got to invest in these people as our neighbors and as our brothers and sisters, because that's what they are.
Right.
I have to agree. I mean, I have an undergraduate in psychology and criminal justice, and I also volunteer for the Department of Corrections in my state, and I can't agree with you more with what you're saying.
Yes,
I mean, what you're talking about are really the principles of restorative justice, and it's the direction that our system should be moving rapidly, because our current correctional facility model is broken.
Well, I think one of the first things we have to do is educate people that prison is about rehabilitation, not punishment. Everybody thinks it's punishment.
Right.
Prison is supposed to be rehabilitation.
Right.
Absolutely.
It should be, but it's really not, unfortunately. And programs within even low, medium to maximum security, depending on the state, are abysmal. And a lot of these inmates or residents of facilities rely on volunteers to come in and help to teach classes and offer them different skills. And a lot of people don't do it. And these guys are suffering behind bars. I mean, only recently we re-implemented Pell Grants for residents of facilities to become further educated and get an undergraduate degree. And undergraduate degrees, higher education, reduces recidivism dramatically. And for us not to acknowledge that as a society and pay, $35,000 to $50,000 a year to incarcerate someone, whenever an undergraduate degree costs maybe $40,000, doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
So Chris, let me jump in for a second. Basically, what you're saying is education stops recidivism.
I wouldn't say it stops it; it lowers it dramatically, because so much of incarceration is driven off of poor socioeconomic conditions and just systemic breakdowns. And undergraduate degrees, higher education, lowers recidivism anywhere close to 40%. Wow. And recidivism rates are very, very high in this country. And I understand not everybody's going to want to get an undergraduate degree, but there has to be some type of additional training in order to also improve socioeconomic status, whether it's technical training for jobs or whatever.
So I have a question for Chris. Since prisons are supposed to be rehabilitation, what are your views on someone who is supposedly rehabilitated having to report their criminal record to get a job?
Oh, I mean, in some circumstances, I understand why that is, because a lot of people do not want to work next to somebody who is obviously a risk, but it's creating barriers to employment.
Yeah, because if the person is supposed to be rehabilitated,
should it matter?
They if they're not rehabilitated, they shouldn't be back out in society.
Like I will give this as an example. One of my instructors has a that I had for a prior class for restorative justice. He has a criminal record. He spent 20 years in prison and was let out. He went on to get a bachelor's degree whenever he was incarcerated, and then afterwards he earned a restorative justice degree. It took him weeks to get approved through the college that I was attending just to teach classes, because you can't even really get a job as a professor at a college if you have any type of criminal background. There's housing problems where people don't qualify for specific types of housing. I mean, the list goes on and on. And prison wages, I mean, I know you can speak to this, Shane, are abysmal.
Yeah.
It's basically our system is just preying on prisoners, in my opinion. And when you're trying to teach residents of facilities not to prey on people, that's the whole premise of them being in there. And then we pay them, 60 cents or $1 an hour, and they can't meet their attorney bills. They can't meet commissary purchases. They can't afford health care. It's a problem, and it's going to make people bitter. And it doesn't improve rehabilitation.
That is a problem. When you got corporation owning some jails and they're making all the product and they're making all this money, and they don't want to teach people or fix people. They got people like, they almost train them that I'm going to let you out for a few weeks, and then you wind up back in jail because you can't even get a job or do anything. What the hell do you think is going to happen? The system.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, here's a fun fact that a lot of people don't know. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery except for in prisons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's right. Well, in prisons prey on the least educated, least slowest, economically sound people in America, and then they extort people with the ridiculous prices of commissary. And that's one of the issues that I have, that really one of my missions is, President Trump talks about bringing these jobs back to America. And what I want is for these companies to build factories next to these prisons. And I want, let's just say we're going to build an Amazon factory next to FCI Terre Haute in Indiana, where I got released from. And then now I'm an inmate in there, and I'm going to go to work at the Amazon factory. I'm going to work with Rocker Mike. He's going to be my manager. He's going to get me involved in these training courses. I'm going to be working. And let's say I'm making, I would normally make, let's just hypothetically say you would normally make $10 an hour. Let's pay me $5 an hour.
Right.
So now I can pay for my own commissary. I can pay my child support so my kid's taken care of. Instead of grandmama having to send some of her money to help me make it in there, grandma needs help making rent. I can send some money home. I can be an asset to my family, not a liability, not a burden. Now my self-esteem is going to work for that. Not only that, but whenever I'm learning training, I'm getting educated. I could take college courses that are going to help facilitate this job, this upward climb through this job. Now, whenever I get ready to go home, I've got a partnership with Amazon. How many Amazon factories do you think are across America? So now when I go home to Houston, Texas, do you think now Rocker Mike can call, hey, I'm going to call HR, put me in contact with the manager at the factory there in Houston so Shane's getting out next week. I want to make sure, let's get him a little bonus so when he gets home, he's got a care package so he can make sure his kids are okay, get him some vacation time so he can go spend some time with his family. Then he can come to work at the factory. There's just a lot of, and I believe you incentivize this with the corporations by the federal government giving these people a tax break for working inmates and training them. I think it's a symbiotic relationship, and we're all trying to make it together. We're all trying to do better together. And I think this serves everybody in the community. The prisons are going to, the cities where the prisons are at are going to get more jobs. So there's going to be factories there. I just think there's a lot of upside to it. Maybe I'm just hoping.
Well, that is such a great idea, especially with the increase in factory work that's now coming to the United States.
Yeah.
Manufacturing.
People are famously saying nobody wants to do that work. Well, I'm pretty sure someone who just spent 10 years in prison will be more than happy to learn how to work a piece of machinery or something or whatever, and come out with a factory job that off the rip pays. See, knowledge, I got that one from you. Off the rip, just automatically pays $30 an hour to start.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But
And
know
if you
the
have a
problem?
$30 an
The
hour
system is
job,
broken.
you're less likely to want to go back to jail.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because the
Yeah.
system is broken. They don't want these people to be able
Yeah.
to do anything. They want them to be able to come back because the system is broken. It's a big,
Well,
it's a
to
big
add on
mess.
So, Rob, to add on to that, you have a lot of these prisons being privatized by corporations.
Right.
So instead of paying Rock or Mike $45 an hour because he's the manager,
Mhm.
you give the trustee in prison a little, like you said, a little $10, $12 an hour,
Mhm.
but you don't have to pay him. You don't have to pay his benefits. You don't have to pay his insurance. You're not paying employee taxes.
You're not doing 401k. You're not doing any of that stuff that
Yes.
everybody else gets.
So
But you know
So
what?
the
You should, when you
corporation-
get out of jail, you should be able to work for that for like a year. And if
Yeah.
you really show up that you're good, then you can add the bonuses and everything else and let them start a career.
well, you do it. Okay, if you want to do it like that, you're basically on probation from the time you're released to a year after that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think you're softening the blow too for these corporations. Say they're working in China or Thailand, they're paying pennies on the dollar.
Yeah,
Now you're not paying full wages. You're
yeah,
getting, let's say you're paying half wages to these inmates or offenders,
Yeah.
right? So I believe this is sustainable. I believe it's something that you could work through. I believe
but at the same time, if I'm paying a Chinese guy a literal $1 an hour in American money,
That's
that's
a little boy, not a Chinese guy. It's like an 8-year-old fixing the shit.
Well, they tried something similar here in New York City. They tried like people on public assistance. They said, look, we're going to train them to do some of the city jobs, right? And we'll, instead of paying them like a city wage of like $30 an hour, we'll pay them 15.
Yeah,
And all the unions said no, no,
They
no, no,
flipped
no.
out. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Hell no. That ain't happening.
But all that to say, I think what we've got to, I think we have an opportunity, especially with the friendly administration, and we have Congress and the Senate. I think we have an opportunity to maybe legislate our way out of some of this bad Biden crime bill and potentially change some of these BOP policies for federal prisons and then hopefully onto the state. But I think we have I think we owe it to ourselves and to the people locked behind bars to try to do this better.
Shane, I agree with you 1,000%. And I just want to say too, you mentioned the Biden crime bill. Okay. This is something for people that don't know. I don't know how you don't know, but people that don't know,
you'll be surprised.
yeah, low information. I got you. You know, basically Trump got rid of that whole bill in his first time around. Okay. And the way that bill was written up was 3 times and you're gone.
Yeah, 3 strikes are out.
3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah, but that was that Kamala Harris that did that shit, that idiot.
It was
You can get busted 3 times with cocaine and you were fine, but if you got busted 3 times with crack,
your life sentence.
Yeah,
life sentence.
Yeah, 3 times are out. But remember, Kamala Harris grew up in a middle class neighborhood.
Yeah. She also blew her way to the top.
Yeah.
They call Heels Up Harris. That's what they call her. Heels Up Harris.
Shots fired right
But
there.
you know what the problem is? We had a president that they were hiding for a while because the motherfucker had dementia. He had no idea what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
Well, it was weak in the
Problem.
30s over
We had
there.
a guy that was fucked up. And
You
nobody
know-
really said it. But and then what they do when the whole shit going down, they say he had COVID-19 and they had to hide him for like 2 weeks.
Right.
This motherfucker, we
Okay.
need to get down to that fucking shit with this motherfucker that had dementia and running the country.
I think he's had cancer for a long time. I have looked at him and I'm like, he's sick and he looks like he has cancer. I felt that for
we
at
know
least
we know a
4
few
years.
people that have cancer and it doesn't just sneak up on you like that.
No.
It takes a while.
Listen,
Yes.
can I tell everybody something? When you have prostate cancer, I don't know this firsthand, but when you have prostate cancer, the first thing that happens is you're having a problem urinating, okay?
That's correct.
And there's no way that the president of the United States did not know he was having a problem urinating.
Dude, he got the best health care.
He has
the president.
he has doctors with him every minute. If he goes on Air Force One, there is a surgical team ready to go on that plane in case he needs surgery. He has the best medical care of anybody on the planet. How did they hide that? Okay, Well,
Well, no, his wife.
They knew.
The doctor,
Yeah, they knew.
His wife's the doctor. What the fuck
Dr.
just
Jill.
happened? That's insane.
Now,
They
people
was
have
just
The educator.
Dr. Feelgood with that idiot son doing cocaine. He did have to cocaine. I'm not going to say that.
I have a question. I have a question about Dr. Jill. Has anybody seen Alice Cooper and Dr. Jill at the same place at the same time?
Now, what exactly is she a doctor of?
She's an educator. It's
teacher.
education degree.
Yeah, she's not like no, she's not a medical doctor.
Not at all.
No, she's like John Cena, the doctor. Which doesn't know anything.
She wanted to be called doctor because she has this degree. So whatever. But I mean, there's no way that they didn't know he had prostate cancer. And I tell you, I think that's one of the worst things out of this. It's bad enough they stole the election. You could believe that or not. But they put a guy in who was visibly not well, okay, in charge of the United States, in charge of making decisions. Now we know things are coming out over the last few days about certain people that were in charge of the auto pen.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, what was classic is they were claiming executive privilege, and Trump just waived it.
Yeah.
I'm glad they just did put Mr. Michelle Obama in office.
Mike, you mean? Mike. Yeah, Mike. Big Mike.
Yes, Big Mike. You know, oh God. So, Christina, I want to come back to you for a minute. You wanted to talk about some bills that are going through the state legislature in New York, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple bills going through the state legislature in New York. One is the New York Earned Time Act. The other one is the Marvin Mayfield Act.
What are they?
So the New York's Earned Time Act, basically it incentivizes growth and transformation. It recognizes community ties by helping families reunite sooner, recognizes that accountability isn't just about sitting in a cell, it's about actively taking steps toward repair, and it shifts resources away from endless punishment toward community healing. So basically what it really does is it incentivizes people to be actively involved in the rehabilitation process and makes them less likely to reoffend when they are released into society.
Okay.
And then there's the Marvin Mayfield Act, which is sentencing reform. And that is basically no more mandatory minimum sentences. It focuses on rehabilitation. It focuses on individualized sentencing. It focuses on cost consideration, which is really important considering the physical damage that we have currently in the United States. And it has more sentencing options such as community supervision, probation, and restorative justice alternatives. I mean,
what do you mean by mandatory minimum sentencing?
A lot, like say you're okay. For example, say you commit a crime, you murder somebody, and they just say they don't look at the whole profile of the individual. They just look at the sentencing structure and say, okay, this states that the person is going to receive at least 20 years in prison for what they did.
Right.
It looks at other variables, and the judge is able to make a more informed decision about what type of sentencing. Does that make sense to you?
Well, yes. We've had some instances where judges have had that leniency, or not. Not leniency is not the right word. They've had that option. Where was it in Vermont? The one judge decided that a guy raped a young girl, a minor, and he decided that because this person had a tough childhood and he had unfortunate circumstances, that he shouldn't do jail time at all. So I see like judge having like I think minimum sentences are kind of good, um, because there are so many judges out there that are activists on the bench.
That's the
Mhm.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem.
There's also the problem historically with people being discriminated against, whether it be African American or Hispanic, and minimum sentencing takes away from some of that. Um, Whenever you're putting a person behind bars, because it fairly puts it across the board and says, okay, well, this person is getting this sentence, and so is this sentence, or this person, and then the judge can't be looked at as being making, racist
Right.
decisions. But in the same breath, you have to look at a person all the way around, and as well as the cost benefits, and that we're paying something like $1 trillion a year or more, just for our incarceration system, and it's not working, and that doesn't take into consideration other costs that are shifted to other areas such as Medicaid, because marketplace insurance, inmates are not allowed to have it. I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit more.
Well, you know what? That's not. I'm going to tell you from somebody that that's not a bad thing.
Well,
The
the thing is, we pay, we feed them terribly.
Mhm.
We create an environment that's not conducive to proper health, and then we don't offer proper resources for health care. We don't pay them well enough, so you're having prisoners that are not seeking health care like they should whenever they have a problem.
Mhm.
They're eating primarily from the commissary because, I mean, you can speak to this, Shane. Prison food is abysmal. Commissary food is something like 6 times the amount of sodium. I mean, like, you have no idea. Inmates
Is that accurate?
have,
Is that
yes,
No,
I,
absolutely. I mean, the best thing that typically the best thing you could buy off a commissary is like summer sausage and ramen noodles, and we all know like those
Ramen
ramen
noodles is like just salt.
It's
ramen
like
noodles is
that's the
smoking
staple
carbs.
of yeah, and so
Yeah.
you're absolutely
inmates,
correct. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely correct. No, go ahead, Chris.
Inmates
You wanna hear
suffer from
something crazy?
cardiovascular disease at an exponentially higher rate than the regular population, and it's because of sodium content in commissary. It's noise pollution. There's all sorts of things that contribute to heart disease, and it's expensive to treat. And a lot of people behind bars don't seek treatment like they should right away until it gets to the point that they have to be hospitalized, and then they're shifted off to Medicaid, to have Medicaid pay for it, and that's not accountability in our current system, shifting an expense to another part of government, and not taking accountability that, okay, we fed this person wrong, the environmental conditions suck, and we have induced health problems that we're now having to pay for as a society.
Well, I would argue with a little bit on that point. I would push back that they're not waiting till the last minute to deal with it. They're not getting treated. What they do is they use these companies, and I don't know who they use, but they have a bottom line, and so
Mhm.
they're going to do very limited treatments. Like I couldn't get if there was a 2-year backlog on getting your teeth cleaned. You're not if you have a toothache, like if you got a chipped tooth or something, you're trying to get a filling. They're not going to give you a filling. They're either going to pull it or you're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
have to deal. You got to deal with it.
Yes.
In
But
many
you know
like
what that happened, right?
why is that?
You know what? The dental care got pulled off because like in North Dakota, South Dakota, Sioux Falls, all those places, there were so many people that were doing crystal meth, and all the teeth were fucking floating out that they
Yeah.
couldn't even they couldn't even support how much dental that you had to have dentists there all the time, and they're like, this is insane. So
Well,
they'd
no,
rather
and
yank your tooth out than to give you they couldn't take care of it, and there was so many. Like the bill was crazy. If you look that whole thing up about how much they're paying dental in that area, it was insane. I couldn't even believe
Wow.
it. That's when they started changing things.
that's a fair argument. We talk about the least educated, lowest socioeconomic
Yeah.
class. Like they're not getting good dental care. But even people that were taking care of their teeth, you still can't. You're gonna lose your teeth because they're gonna pull them, and then the medical care.
Them off. They weren't even putting a new tooth. They were just yanking them off, man.
Well, yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, they definitely.
Has anybody considered the military's perspective on how they run prisons? Military prisons are all about rehabilitation. A military sentence is much shorter than the civilian sentence.
Yeah.
So if you go to military prison, it's basically basic training every day.
Okay.
Right. It's basic training every day. You get the same medical treatment that a regular soldier gets. I mean, granted, it's not the best, but you still get the same medical.
They had that shock camp, I think it was. That you would do
boot camp like shock treatment, boot camp, something like that.
But military prison is more than that. You get the same benefits as a non-incarcerated soldier, but you're incarcerated. You get the same healthy food, everything, and the biggest thing is your prison time. It's much shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And when people leave military prison, they still have to serve the time left they have in the military. So that proves that they were reintegrated into the military society.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
Something I wanted to touch on that I believe maybe it was you, Eric, that said it earlier. You kind of said there was a shift in rehabilitation to punishment. And so Texas prisons about 20 years ago, it used to be called the Texas Department of Corrections. Mm-hmm. You get arrested for a negative behavior, we're going to help you correct it. We're going to help you rehabilitate so you correct this behavior. They rebranded themselves as the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, which meant they only were concerned about extrapolating justice from the offender. They just wanted to make sure you got 20 years. We're going to make sure you do as much of that as we can. We're not going to. Mm-hmm. And they pulled all the programs, all the trades, most of the education, most of the classes and everything. And they really changed. They shifted, and then the cafeteria food really went downhill. And there is like I don't know if it's an ideology or what it is, but there is kind of in it. There has been this push for this private prisons for profit, and when it gets down to the bottom line, like when you're trying to make a profit, the only person that's going to suffer at the end of that is the inmate, because they're going to they're going to buy quality beef, or they're going to buy as much pork as they can, and they're going to get as much pork as they can, and then we know pork is not as good for you as beef, or you're going to get the good chemicals to clean with, or you're going to get the crappy ones. Now infections are going to go up, people are going to get sick. And it just kind of, it's like this downhill slide, and when they start cutting costs, and it is expensive. I'm not going to say it's expensive. It costs more to incarcerate properly and invest in people, but I believe the pendulum has swung so far to just like giving these people the bare minimum, giving them the boot to the back of their neck, just kicking the crap out of them, throw them in solitary confinement. And then especially with all these people that suffered through COVID in there, being locked down for those 2 years. We know how kids suffered being locked in the houses, but not being in school. Imagine how the inmates suffered in there, what they lost in there. And so I'm not saying it's worse, but I'm just saying we have an opportunity to reimagine this. And I think that, you know what I really think that the left is afraid of is this conversation right here. We've got women, men, we've got black men, we've got white men. We're like, this is a beautiful thing where if we can all come together and agree on like just humanity, seeing the humanity in people, investing in our brother and sister, whether we agree with their politics or whatever they're in jail for. I agree. There's in certain extent, there needs to be places for people who kill, rape, child molesters. There needs to be places for those people. And there's kind of, I have this idea where I call it right track, wrong track. Like if you raise your hand and say, I want to do everything I can to fix my life, to get my crap together, then we're going to put you on the right track, because you're trying to get down that right track. But if you want to do drugs, if you want to gangbang, if you want to be on the cell phone, if you want to fight, if you want to stab, if you want to do these things, you're going to be on the wrong track. And we're going to send you to these maximum security gladiator farms, or you're getting the bare minimum. But if you want to do the right thing and you want to try to turn your life around, we're going to send you to these places where you're going to be working in the community, where you're going to be cleaning up these parks, working on these national parks, doing all these different. I want to see people working in the community, partnering with small businesses, giving them regular jobs, and they come back to prison at night. Like, there's a lot of different ways we can do this, and I just think
we have those programs right now. They're just not for Americans. They're for people here illegally.
Yeah.
I just want to chime in on people being incarcerated for substance abuse. I totally do not agree with that. I do not think that a prison environment offers any type of decent rehabilitation for substance abuse disorders. I think that that's something that should be pushed through diversion. And we're talking about going through a substance abuse program and therapy. There are better ways of treating substance abuse problems than incarcerating a person.
As long as you didn't commit a violent crime.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, if
as long as there's nothing attached, yeah.
I mean, if it's mixed,
Like if it's petty larceny or something like that, yeah.
I will say this: I struggled in my earlier years when I was going through my identity crisis and dealing with the guilt and shame of killing my stepdad. I turned to drugs and alcohol, and I don't see a way, because I got probation for my charges. I had got caught with cocaine twice. I had got into a fight, aggravated assault. Got aggravated assault causing serious bodily injury. I hurt somebody, broke his jawbone through his face in a fight over a drug deal at a gas station. Still, I got probation, lasted like 2 months on probation, and was dirty for UA. They sent me back to jail, ended up getting sentenced to prison. And I just feel like maybe you do a short term, we're going to do a 10-year sentence. You're going to do 1 year in, and we're going to put you back out on the street. And then you get an opportunity to walk this 10-year sentence down. It doesn't have to be probation, but if you don't reoffend, you're not going to get, you're not going to be under the gun or under, have our finger holding you down. But I think incarceration serves a purpose. Now, I do agree that you do need drug treatment. Like they offer, what is that called? It's a therapeutic community programs in federal prisons and stuff like that. And those things are valuable if they're run properly. If they're not in there just dope fiending the program, as we call it, like just faking and shaking.
Yeah.
But I do think we have an opportunity.
Well,
Sorry.
Depending on the therapy that's offered for people that are incarcerated also depends on how well they deal with their substance abuse, because not all therapeutic programs are equal, and there needs to be more research within correctional facilities on what that they should use. Because, for instance, dialectical behavioral therapy is demonstrated to treat substance abuse disorders very, very well. Other therapies are not, but how many correctional facilities are actually using dialectical behavioral therapy in order to help incarcerated people that have substance abuse problems? Because drugs are rampant behind bars.
Yeah.
Man, ridiculous.
It's crazy. You know what? You know what's gonna be funny? We're gonna find out what happened when P. Diddy can't get that pure freaking baby oil. And can't get fucked up and drink Tabasco. Let's see what happened with that. That motherfucker's going away for a long time.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So Shane,
Yes, sir.
what are you up to now? Okay, I know you have a whole like a ministry going, kind of, right?
Yes, sir. So while I was in, I started an LLC called The Real J6. If you go to therealj6.com, we sell T-shirts and all that stuff on there. But also, while I was in, I cast the vision. I believe God gave me the vision for a nonprofit called Stand in the Gap. And what we're doing is the long-term objective is fighting for prison reform, whether it's in the state of Texas or across the BOP. But short-term, we are fighting for January 6ers right now. We have 3 or 4 programs where we're doing a wellness retreat for January 6ers because I will say this, I have been incarcerated multiple extended stays in my life, and it has never been quite as difficult emotionally and mentally as it has been this time. And I don't know if it was because of the things we endured or whatever, but we're funding a wellness retreat. Another thing we're doing is because basically we were kidnapped by the FBI. Everybody's credit went to hell. So we're working with this RGV place out of South Texas. It's a credit repair company. We're doing credit repair for the guys. We're funding that. and then we're also doing we're doing a thing called Mission Memory Maker, which is a 3 to 5 day vacation, fully funded vacation. We're paying for Uber to the airport, airfare. We're paying for the resort meals and stuff like that, hotels, all that. And we're accepting frequent flyer miles, hotel points, and we're also doing a thing where we're paying for, because of the lack of health care for many of the men in there, we're paying for wellness, like we're paying for medical and dental treatment for everybody. We're paying for the health care for them. And so if you're interested, if you guys want to go to the website is called standinthegap.foundation. It shows all the programs that we have on there. But that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting to make sure that my January 6 brothers and sisters get their lives back, and that they get to be in their right frame of mind, that their health is okay, and that their familial relationships are rebuilt and put back together. Unfortunately, I know about 7 men who are going through divorces right now due to being gone so long in prison and coming home, and they feel like one guy told me, he's like, man, I came home and it was like they buried me, and my ghost showed up at the house, and I sit down and my kids, it's like everybody gets quiet when I walk in the room. Nobody knows what to say to me. And so he went through to where they sold the house and split up and everything. It's just been it's been one thing after another. Now we had Bart Shively, who a U.S. Marine, 7 years, got poisoned by the water at Camp Lejeune. I'm going to his funeral next week in Pennsylvania. He was poisoned by the water at Camp Lejeune. The day after he got arrested for January the 6th, he was supposed to get his first chemotherapy treatment. He was a stage two non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Before he did almost 2 years in jail before they would let him out. They denied him his cancer treatment for over a year in the DC jail. By the time he got out, the judge released him. He was a stage 4. He died last week in his trailer in Pennsylvania from his non-Hodgkin's, his battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it was the saddest thing that I've ever had to see.
I just have to say, I never thought I would see that in this country.
Yeah.
Well, what makes it even worse is because of the SCOTUS ruling, a majority of the people shouldn't have even been behind bars.
Yeah.
Because remember, SCOTUS said that the charges that they were brought on, it was far-reaching.
Yeah, the 1512 was too. It was not. It didn't even. It had to do with Enron, corporate, basically destruction of government of documents. Not had anything to do with what was going on at the Capitol.
Right. They used that as an excuse.
So most people should have been charged with misdemeanor trespassing, which is usually just a desk appearance.
Right. No, and and even me, I broke a window, right? So destruction of government property. I threw things at police. So simple assault, like nobody said I hurt them. There was no injuries from anything I did.
Right.
They were wearing full riot gear, helmets, masks, riot shields, and all that. I should have probably done a year in jail. Fair enough. I can accept that. But
you shouldn't have waited a year before your trial.
Well, and to label me a tier 1 anti-government. Yeah, well, they weaponized the DOJ against us. I had a 12-count felony charge. They asked for 234 months in federal prison.
I'm bothered that they didn't give the person that you knew access to medical care whenever he was fighting cancer. I mean, in my opinion, that's cruel and unusual punishments. You don't, whenever a person is fighting for their life, you don't deny them that type of medical treatments.
There were so many due process rights violated. You know, and that's what drives me crazy. Everybody is like talking about due process now for people not in this country legally. Yes, everybody gets due process. But what about Americans?
Yeah.
You know, we deserve due process also. Judges have said that Jan 6's due process rights were violated and no one cared. There was not I didn't see, I saw a lot of Republican politicians speaking up, but not a single Democrat. All the Democrats now that are literally crying and banging on doors, they said nothing.
Yeah,
where
was the ACLU and the NAACP?
Yeah, where were they?
Yeah, they were. These people who you would think were civil rights activists would be it, but there's a bias. It depends on what part of the spectrum you're on the political scale, and so. Unfortunately, that's why they took us to DC, because it was a 97% Biden district. They had people in there that were just being, and that's what really upsets me about the FBI and the DC jail. Like, if it was me, I'm taking my badge and I'm slamming it down on the table and I'm saying, I'm not participating in this. Yes, that guy should go to jail for assaulting an officer. Yes, he broke a window. Give him a year. I'm okay with that. But labeling him a tier 1 anti-government extremist, sending the SWAT team and an armored personnel carrier after him, sending the head of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, taking him to the DC jail and torturing him is absolutely over the top. And all they did was they were like, we're good Nazis. We're just going to do what we're just doing what we're told. Like, instead of saying, you know what, I object to this. This is against my morality. I'm not participating in this. I'm tendering. Here's my resignation, as a matter of fact. But nobody did that because they wanted to go along. They hated us just as much as everybody else did, and they really wanted to kill us, but they couldn't get away with it.
You know what it reminds me of? Are you familiar with the Stanford prison experiments?
I am not.
It's a prison experiment that was done decades ago, and they took people and they assigned them the position of correctional officers, and then they took other people and assigned them the position of inmates, and then they put them in an environment, and within I would say about 24 or 48 hours there were just so many systemic breakdowns with correctional guards attacking the inmates and having such a terrible environment that they had to shut the experiment down. It's one of the better known experiments in the field of psychology, and it's very controversial. And by today's standards, I don't think something like that would be approved through an institutional review board. But you should look into it because it's a very interesting study in human behavior.
What was that called again? The Stanford experiment?
Stanford prison experiments.
Okay.
Because who watches the watchers?
Yes.
Yeah, who watches it?
Well, and you got to think these aren't the highest. Who wants to go work? These aren't the sought after jobs, and these people lack proper training, and they're, when you give people some power, it's probably intoxicating, and then whenever you right or wrong, they politicize it instead of just being professional and saying, hey, you're just like any other inmate. We're going to treat you accordingly, just like and maybe that was the problem. They treated us like they treat the rest of the inmates in the DC jail, except we weren't carrying knives and beating the crap out of guards and stabbing them like the other inmates. So they had less respect.
Disciplined person is there.
Another great example. Have you heard of the Milgram experiments? Where you have a person in a white, and this is another one that would never fly by today's standards with an institutional review board. It was created as an experiment related to why people behave the way they did with Nazi Germany. So they took people that supposedly were being electrocuted. They took another person who was going to be doing the electrocution. They put somebody behind them in a white coat that was giving instructions on what they should do to the person and amplifying it. Most of the people complied with the person that was giving the orders with increasing the shocks. And the results of the study were so alarming that it's a hallmark study in the field of psychology. You should look it up. But I mean, everything that you're discussing here with what went on with the Capitol riots and how you were treated in the correctional facility system, it reminds me of the Stanford prison experiment.
What was the second one called again?
Stanford prison experiment, and the other one is the Milgram experiment. M-I-L.
Milgram?
A-M.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, Trump is just suing all of the district court judges in Maryland.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the first step in correcting the justice system in DC.
And he has expressed through back channels for people that we have conversations with that he has a passion for justice. We saw the First Step Act, and now they have the Second Chance Act. He is passionate about justice reform, and I think it's a very good indicator that he not only pardoned Alice Johnson, but now she's his pardon czar. Somebody who was prosecuted wrongly under the crack laws, and then now he makes her the pardon czar. So I think there's, he has a passion for it, and I think when that man has his heart set on something, he's going to get it done. And I'm looking forward to playing my role in that and serving our community because whenever people do that, and you kind of touched on it earlier. I believe, and I don't know what this looks like, but I believe once your debt is paid, that debt is paid.
Yeah, that's it.
And I don't know what that looks like with. I disagree with, and I understand if you killed somebody with a gun, you probably shouldn't own a gun, but it says shall not be infringed. I believe somewhere there has to be some kind of, once I'm made whole again in society's eyes, I should be made whole again. It shouldn't be, well, you can't vote,
I agree.
you can't own a gun, or you can't work
Your
in this
record,
job.
your record should be sealed.
Yeah, or you can't live in these apartments because those do a background check. Like, you should be made whole again. And I just
yeah, there are too many collateral consequences of incarceration that negatively affect the people involved and increase recidivism. I'm on the same page with you there.
Yeah, yeah. All right. With that, I want to thank everybody for coming on today. I am right. Episode what? 5? What are we? 5?
Right.
Trouble in Paradise.
Okay.
It's been an honor, y'all.
Yes,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shane, before you go, is there anything you want to add? Any social media handles you want to bring up? Anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. If you will, follow me on Twitter at @TheRealJ6Shane, or if you're on TikTok, TheRealJ6_US. But I would like to say to the general public and to the American people out there, do not stand by on the sidelines. Be engaged in your community. Benjamin Franklin said, "You have a republic if you can keep it," and he meant this is a participatory experiment. We have got to get engaged, whether it's running for dog catcher, city council, school board, election, whatever. Get involved in any way you can. Serve in your community, because that's how we keep this republic, and that's how you've got to participate. You have to play a role in it, and that way people don't, like me, don't go to jail and suffer again under some tyrannical crap. We have got to have our voices heard, and we've got to participate. And I just thank y'all for bringing truth and light to the nation, man. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Shane. Chris, would you like to add something? Social media handles, your blog, anything like that?
Sure. People can read my blog for free. I do not publish under a paywall through Medium, and it's under Criminal Justice Chris. And you can read about the New York's Earned Income Act and the Marvin Mayfield Act. And I also wrote a blog on the Mandela rules related to incarceration in Connecticut.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so what do we say at the end of every episode, Rob?
We don't get drunk.
We get lumped up.
All day.
See you next time.